Today we are learning the femoral nerve, the nerve that powers the front of thigh. Now, I would like you to think about simple movements like standing up from a chair, climbing stairs, or even kicking a football. Easy, right? Most of the time, we don't think about these movements. But what if we lose the power to do all of them? Behind these everyday actions lies one of the most important nerves of lower limb, the femoral nerve. The femoral nerve is the chief nerve of the anterior compartment of the thigh. It is the largest branch of the lumbar plexus and carries fibers from spinal nerve roots L2, L3 and L4. Let's learn about the origin of this nerve. Our story begins deep within the abdomen. The femoral nerve is formed by the dorsal division of the anterior primary rami of L2, L3 and L4 spinal nerves. Let's go a little backwards. Every spinal nerve splits into two major branches after leaving the spinal cord. From the dorsal ganglion, it divides into posterior or dorsal primary rami and anterior or ventral primary rami. The femoral nerve is formed by the anterior primary rami. So here is the anterior primary rami and here is the lumbar plexus. Now inside the lumbar plexus, each anterior primary ramus separates into two divisions, the dorsal division and the ventral division. Think of it as highway splitting into two lanes. So this is an highway going and these are the two lanes. One is the dorsal division, one is the ventral division. The fibers in these two divisions eventually join into different nerves. For the femoral nerve, only the dorsal divisions of L2, L3 and L4 unite and form the nerve. So, the spinal nerve splits into anterior and posterior division. The anterior primary ramus further enters the lumbar plexus and from there it splits into two divisions, dorsal and ventral. The dorsal division of anterior primary rami of L2, L3 and L4 ultimately forms the femoral nerve. So, the femoral nerve is a part of the lumbar plexus. Once formed, the nerve emerges from the lateral border of the psoas major muscle. This marks the beginning of its journey towards the thigh. After emerging from the psoas major muscle, the femoral nerve travels downwards between two muscles. Psoas major lies medially to the nerve and iliacus lies laterally. Here is the psoas major muscle and here is the iliacus muscle. Together, these muscles guide the nerve downwards towards the inguinal ligament over here. The nerve passes deep to the inguinal ligament. Here it enters the femoral triangle. Now, although the femoral nerve enters the femoral triangle and is close to the femoral vessels, it is not a content of the femoral sheath. As you can see here, the femoral nerve lies outside the sheath behind the fascia iliaca. The splitting of the nerve. About 2.5 cm below the inguinal ligament, the femoral nerve reaches its termination. It divides into two branches, an anterior division and a posterior division. The lateral circumflex femoral artery, this one, passes between the two divisions, separating them. From here, numerous branches spread throughout the thigh. Now, let's learn about the muscles supplied by the femoral nerve. First, in the abdomen, the femoral nerve gives a branch to the iliacus muscle, which primarily flexes the hip joint. Second, just above the inguinal ligament, it gives a branch to the pectineus muscle. The pectineus muscle helps in hip adduction and flexion. After that, it enters the thigh. In the thigh, it divides into a superficial anterior division and deep posterior division. The anterior division supplies the sartorius muscle, which runs obliquely down the thigh. It flexes, abducts and laterally rotates the thigh at the hip joint and flexes leg at the knee joint. The deep posterior division supplies the powerful quadriceps femoris group. This includes vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius and rectus femoris muscles. These muscles are responsible for extending the knee and are essential for standing, walking and running. Without the femoral nerve, knee extension becomes severely weakened. Up till now, we talked about the muscular branches, but let's not forget that the femoral nerve is a mixed nerve. It contains both sensory and motor components. Let's talk about the cutaneous branches of the femoral nerve. The femoral nerve is not only a motor nerve, it also provides important sensory supply. The anterior division forms the medial cutaneous nerve of thigh and intermedial cutaneous nerve of thigh, while the posterior division gives rise to the longest sensory branch, the saphenous nerve. This nerve supplies sensation along the medial side of the leg and continues to the medial border of the foot, reaching as far as the ball of the big toe. Now, let's talk about the articular and vascular branches. The femoral nerve also sends specialized branches. The anterior division provides sympathetic fibers to the femoral artery and the posterior division supplies the joints. The knee joint is supplied by the branches that innervate the vastus group of muscles and the hip joint is supplied by the branches through the rectus femoris muscle. These are the same branches that supply the muscles. This demonstrates an important anatomical principle. The nerve supplying a muscle crossing a joint often helps supply that joint as well. What this means is that the quadriceps muscle crosses both the hip and the knee joint. Since the quadriceps muscles are innervated by the femoral nerve, both these joints receive articular branches from the same femoral nerve. So till now, what have we uncovered? The femoral nerve originates from L2, L3 and L4 spinal nerves. It is formed by the dorsal division of anterior primary rami of L2, L3 and L4 nerves. It is the largest branch of the lumbar plexus. We learned that it emerges from the psoas major muscle and passes beneath the inguinal ligament. Then it enters the femoral triangle. It is a nerve that powers the anterior muscles of thigh, extends the knee and provides sensation to much of the front of the thigh and medial side of the leg. From standing up to climbing stairs, the femoral nerve works silently behind countless daily movements, and that's why it deserves a place among the most important nerves of the lower limb.